Hello, hello. I'm waiting for our special guest to arrive. But if anybody has any questions or anything they want to let me know, feel free to let me know while we wait for our two special guests to kind of show up. Hope everybody's doing well. I hope everybody's enjoying their, I guess today's Tuesday. Has anybody checked out the 4th of July sale so far? Hello, hello. I wonder, I gotta make sure they haven't messaged me. Okay. There we go. Ryan, you're here. I think you have to request to join and then I can add you in to this conversation. Here we go. And Clark, you're here too. Can I just add you from here? Oh, yeah, you just have to send me a request, Clark. Send me a request, Ryan. There we go. Ryan, you should have gotten the request there. Let's try it again. And then Clark, you got to send me the same thing to hop in here. Did you send me you got to send me the request, Clark. And then Ryan, I sent you yours. Yeah. And then I already sent accept to you, Ryan. Here, go live with Patho Movement. Bam. I hit it. So I'm just waiting for you, I guess, to accept it on your end, Ryan. All right, let me try again. I gave you an invite now. So see if that lets you hype in. And then.
Hello.
There we go. Okay. So you're in here, Ryan. Ryan, how's it going? I'm still trying to get Clark to get in. We're having some technical difficulties getting Clark in here, but let's go ahead and get the party started as I try and invite Clark. So the big announcement, and I guess while we try and get Clark in here, let's get to know a little bit about you. I'll give everybody kind of what this whole thing is about. So if anybody's wondering who Ryan is and who Clark is, we're bringing back MovNat Medical in 2026, and Ryan's going to be a big part of it, and so is Clark. And I'll just give you guys a little background of how I met Ryan. So Phil Lombardo, who's part of the original team, some of you probably know who he is he used to kind of teach all the MovNat Medical courses. When I got into this role, somebody who I reached out to see if we can bring back MovNat Medical. And after having several conversations with Phil, he referred me to two individuals. One of them I had in my mind, which was Clark, because I hadn't met Ryan. And Phil spoke very, very highly of Ryan. And then Ryan had to deal with, I think, 2 or 3 phone calls from me. And I think at that point, we had some pretty deep discussions as to where we want this to go. And I won't take up more, but Ryan, if you could just give them a background of what's going on with you and who you are and how you got involved in MovNat and what you're currently doing.
Yeah, would love to. Yes, my name is Ryan Peters. I am a physical therapist by trade. I'm also a running coach for distance runners. And, I actually found MovNat in a very kind of unlikely way. My dad got me this book as a gift for Christmas, which was very unlike him because we didn't gift a lot of books. Like we were more like a sporting goods, outdoor goods type family. And it was the Paleo Manifesto by John Durant. And there was a section on there on movement. And Irwan's system of MovNat was in there. And I was just very intrigued. I was like, what is this? I've never heard this before. So I kind of went down the rabbit hole and found a workshop in Rhode Island back in 2015 at Ryan McGowan's gym, Layback Fitness, and the rest was kind of history. I mean, I fell in love with it right away. Just being a athlete at heart, I just love training, but strength, conventional training never really felt like something I wanted to stick with. So this was a perfect blend of, wow, like I can really see the benefits in increasing some capability and fitness. I just love the whole aspect that it touches on every part of life. And then being a practitioner, it kind of made a nice, easy sense to say like, okay, well, I understand this. I've experienced these things. I'd love to share this with my patients and my clients. So it's kind of had this whole spectrum of health and wellness to fitness and performance. And yeah, this is where we are today, a decade later. So happy to be back into this and to meet you, Brian, and work with you and Clark, because excited to really, just keep bringing this to more people. Like I've shared MovNat with so many people over the last decade, whether they're fellow PTs or my clients, and that's probably not going anywhere. So
yeah, I think everybody's reaction, and I'll say this, when I got into MovNat in 2020, my instructor was John Murray, who, if I'm not mistaken, was a part of the original team who helped write the first MovNat Medical Manual. And I remember me and Murray's stories being very similar to how we got to MovNat. And it's weird how everybody kind of comes back to this preponderance of evidence kind of moment where, having never met, we've come to the same conclusion that this is not anything fancy. It's just something that it's in the name, right? It's naturally something that we just do. And for me, the paradigm shift is that it really paints a picture that fitness doesn't have to be dogmatic. It just has to be innate, right? Movement has to just be something you do all the time. And if you just do that, your body's just going to naturally kind of cyclically take care of itself, and you're going to be able to do whatever it is that you want to do. What we try and foster is just capability, but now we can take it into a place where it fosters a re-understanding of your own body. I'm not a physical therapist, I'm an exercise physiologist, and one of the things I note when I work with participants who might be in pain and I refer them out to physical therapists, I'm thankful that I have some great physical therapists that I can call on, because they're not physical therapists that look at people and say that they're broken. They just let them know, like, hey, this is normal for your body to feel the way that it felt because of the thing that happened. But it gives them their own understanding that they're still safe. They're not made of glass. They're not going to shatter. They just need to, get things moving in a certain direction. And they kind of foster this idea of, let's move in a direction to make you feel comfortable in your own body again. And what natural movement has done for me, even in my own injuries, like my right knee, I had a pretty debilitating jiu-jitsu injury that was like a LCL, PCL, MCL, grade 2+, with like a knee subluxation, almost dislocation. The only thing intact is like the ACL. So I always joke that my knees like held together by floss, but that doesn't stop me from doing anything. It took a while to be able to vault and jump and do things again. Right. But using natural movement as my gauge and putting that understanding in my mind that I will be okay again, I think it allows us to use natural movement from a rehabilitory standpoint, and not this idea that people have that we're just outside of the jungle all the time, throwing rocks and flinging ourselves from tree to tree.
Right. So true.
And I just, for whatever reason, I couldn't get Clark to get on here to join us with us. For those of you who don't know, there we go. Clark, I just sent you an invite. I'm hoping that if you're there, you can get it and hop in here. I know his time is limited. He's only going to be able to be with us until like 1:30. But while we wait for him to hopefully join, I think both of us, we both did MovNat Medical at different times. And I think we have our experiences with it and our understandings of what it does for the industry in terms of physical therapy as a whole. And this is by no means to discredit or say anything about anybody who ran it before. I think Phil Lombardo did a phenomenal job of MovNat Medical. But where we're trying to go with MovNat now, which is MovNat 2.0, I think we both came to an agreement that needs to be updated, it needs to be elevated, and it needs to really be refined down to how this can assist physical therapists in a much more nuanced fashion. So Can we speak to that? Like, what was your overall feeling with MovNat Medical? And says that I apologize. He says that he's unable to join. Why is he unable to join? I don't understand what's going on here. Clark, I apologize. I don't know what the issue is. I sent you the thing and it's just not going through. But go ahead, Ryan. What was your experience with MovNat Medical, and what did you really, really like about it, and what are we trying to aim to potentially do?
Yeah, so Phil, I was part of the MovNat Medical board, and it's a shame Clark can't comment because he was actually an attendee at the first MovNat Medical curriculum that we did in New Jersey at Phil's clinic. So it's kind of all comes back full circle, right? So what I've really enjoyed about this program is bringing this into light with health practitioners, not just PTs, but chiropractors, anyone who essentially works with a person or a human body can find a lot of value from understanding the holism of how we move, right? I think a lot of practitioners, we only have so much time with our clients or patients, and we want to be able to understand how things are connected. So there's this kind of growing trend on, okay, if I have a shoulder problem, what does that really mean to the rest of the body and how it connects to each other? So rather than just boxing things in, MovNat Medical really stands as a perfect place to already take the principles that we know with natural movement and apply it to a body that is maybe moving in dysfunction or is in pain or has injury, and then tie that holistically to how the rest of the body moves. So I think it brings it down to easily understand things, which there's no shortage of information out there, right? Like there's tons of information, and there's nothing worse than having somebody in front of you who doesn't have the wealth of knowledge that, you know, medical practitioners have, and then leaving a session feeling more confused. So to be able to dilute things down easily and give them actionable plans on not just dealing with their problem at a base level, but let's raise capability, let's work on fitness, let's get to things that are actually proactive so that things aren't less likely to come back and be a problem over and over and over again. And that is rooted in really MovNat's perception, like you mentioned, like awareness to the body. And having that understanding is going to serve somebody, you know, it's like teach a man to fish or give him a fish, right? So we want to teach people, and that's really where the MovNat medical system comes in, is like, let's teach these practitioners who can also then teach their clients and their patients for having long-term solutions to taking care of themselves.
100% agreement on all of those things. Clark, the quick response to you is, if I sent you a request, try and cancel it, and then I will try and send it to you again, and let's see what's going on and try and get you on. Because I'm going to talk Thrive PT right now. So in regards to what you just discussed, right, how natural movement kind of integrates that. I did my MovNat Medical at Clark's location in Virginia with Phil. So Phil was teaching the course, Clark hosted us, and one thing that blew me away about Thrive PT was the environment, right? It had like a place where you could grab objects that were like rocks, and you can walk on narrow surfaces, beams. And it really put in perspective that Clark was not just talking about this, he was applying it with all of his patients. And prior to meeting with Clark, when John Murray was teaching my course in 2020, John Murray, Dr. Chiropractic, you know, he was talking about his clinic, where he spent more time bringing his clients out of the clinic into the fitness floor to do natural. And he says, you know, we often look at like banded internal or external rotation with a, you know, for a shoulder we have with a towel. And he goes, and he's like, I never really liked that exercise, but I used to get it. But once I got to MovNat, you know, it turned into a tripod transition, you know, being supported. And he's like, and that gives you, you know, internal, external rotation under load, but it also gives you kind of a purpose behind the movement. And that was one thing that clicked for me, was that the behavior, right? Movement is a behavior, and movement needs to be purposeful. It needs to have some kind of outcome that is positive. It just can't be nested in the activation of a muscle. Like, yeah, that's important to kind of create some like bridge, right, between the mind and the muscle and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, if you want long-lasting change in your client, in your patient, in the person that's having the issue, you need to have a consequence. And the consequence needs to be success. Because pain is the main factor. It's like, oh, I'm hurting and I'm in pain, and that's your body's kind of guide to tell you, oh, stay away from that. But the moment you could go into there and not experience pain, that's the success. That's the trigger to the mind that allows you to understand that there's a level of perceived safety that your body gives you permission to move back into that place. And that starts getting into, like, you know, the nervous system and how it responds to that. But all of this stuff is stuff that everybody kind of knows, but I feel like it's, especially in the field of physical therapy, but I feel like it's often overlooked just because of what has the field or the profession of physical therapy has unfortunately become, right? Where you have to deal with insurances. And one of the things I saw was like the shortcomings of some of my best colleagues that are some of the greatest physical therapists I know. They no longer deal with insurance. They're cash practice because they can deal with their patients and guide them how they want to guide them. There's nothing that determines how they treat. You know, if you're a physical therapist working in a hospital system, you're there to work with the patient as long as they have a script for it. And you're going to try, well, not that you're going to try, but the unfortunate reality is they tend to perform modalities that give the most amount of earning. That's kind of the direction that they're pushing. It's an unfortunate reality that we have to face. Mm-hmm. But with a private practice, you're free to do whatever you want because, you know, you're paid whatever you're paid for your certs. And that's really allowed people to start approaching this from what is actually practical and what is actually useful. But I feel like that wasn't something that was necessarily included in the original MovNat Medical, right? It was a lot of the neurological stuff. It was almost like MovNat Level 1 Light. And I thought the course was great, but again, for what I envisioned and what me and you have discussed and what me and Clark have discussed, it wasn't where it needs to be. And that's what I'm really excited about for 2026 is that we're not only just going to include the nervous system stuff, the neurobiology, the mechanism of injury, and covering all these things. It's going to be a lot more heavily based on case studies and less on understanding the fundamental principles of MovNat, because that should already be taken care of before you even get into the door. And that's really what I'm excited about. That people will have a really big understanding of what natural movement is, whether you're somebody already an MCT, that's certified level 1 or level 2, or whether you're a physical therapist who's interested. The moment you sign up for the course, the idea should be you're delivered what natural movement is as a whole and some idea of how this ties into your profession. That way, when you walk into the door, it's an experience that you're not going to forget. And I know with you and Clark helping guide the education because of the experiences that you guys had, that's something I'm really, really excited about.
Yeah, I mean, totally. Most practitioners, when we sign up for any coursework, we're really excited to talk about our cases. Like, I had this person with this really nasty rotator cuff problem, and we tried this, and this. And to be able to bring case studies too and have actual problems, we were able to do that a little bit in the original MovNat Medical, but because, like you said, we had to talk on the principles of MovNat and natural movement, efficiency, what creates good, posture, breathing, tension, relaxation. We had to talk about a lot of framework there, and that took away a little bit of time from how can we actually better manage the people who present with a mixture of different things. So to be able to focus more time on that, people are going to walk away with a lot better understanding of, like, okay, how do I apply this right away and use this on the people who, because let's face it, people are complex, right? There's never any two injuries that are exactly the same or problems. So to be able to have a kind of tool bag to try different things, I mean, it's only going to help elevate your experience in your career on how to manage more problematic cases. So, would it help if I gave Clark some time? And do you think it's like should I like sign off so that he can come in or something?
I looked it up that we should have 4.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to try that. I mean, we could potentially try that.
Yeah, I think if he's only got a few times, I'd love to hear some things from Clark. So
let me try again. No worries, Clark. I'm going to try and get you in, but make sure you go into the section that shows where multiple people are, and just make sure you're not seeing where the thing is. I think he just like logged out and is logging back in to see if he can get in. I saw somebody who joined the chat who's called Barry Harris Music, and I was kind of like, excited when I saw that. I don't know if anybody was on the first call, but I used to be a jazz musician, and I actually studied with Chris Parks. I've taken a couple of lessons with him. That completely off tangent subject, but when I saw it, I was like, oh, man, that's awesome.
Yeah,
very
Barry.
jazz educator and an incredible pianist.
Barry's got a great voice. He's actually local to me here in the Delco area of southeastern PA, so I know Barry. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty amazing. That's pretty cool. Okay, so I don't know. I think Thrive actually had to get off because of the time. I think he's got like 10 minutes. I'm not really sure. When he comes back, he comes back. So like we discussed, you mentioned something that was a great point, that there was a lot of time in the original MovNat Medical course that was spent on developing those MovNat L1 kind of fundamentals to be able to really understand. And what I found to be the most beneficial thing about MovNat Medical was the final day when we went over case studies, you know, shoulder impingement, and ACL reconstruction. And we were able to really dial in and look at how you can use these concepts, right? To restore range of motion, or, you know, get them back to function, or get them back to being able to perform. All that stuff was really impactful to me, you know. And what's crazy is I'll never forget that when I started doing MovNat, right before I got my certification is when I had the knee injury from jiu-jitsu. And I remember like not being able to fully, you know, I didn't have full flexion of the knee, and even like stability on it was obviously a question because of the ligamental damage on the LCL and the MCL. And I remember one of the things that I used to later down the road, I didn't do it day one, but to restore range of motion was a lot of the floor positions, you know, getting into a figure four sit, you know, like I couldn't get into it because fear, panic, because of that pressure put on the lateral part of the knee. And, you know, I would use my hands to kind of guide me into the position, and then get down there and kind of feel it, and then come back out until eventually, you know, I could rock gently into the position and do it safely. You know, I did it, you know, internally and in my mind, and with very light guidance, well, with some decent guidance from a physical therapist at the time named Mario Valdez. And that was, it was so easy to implement those actions. Now, granted, I have, you know, a degree in a field that's very simple, which helps organize your own care. But I remember walking out of there after feeling better and just recognizing that this was such a more dynamic and easy approach. And I think it's what led to me having such a robust recovery from the injury.
Yeah, I mean, confidence, right? Like you said, behavior, the relationship there, that's huge. So what's great about MovNat is we as practitioners will understand the parts and the pieces that need to happen kinematically or through physics to adjust levers and tension and pull on muscles, and let's not put an abnormal amount of torque on this body part because they're in pain. But as soon as you start now getting on the floor and let's work on this transition of we're just sitting here and we're going to lean over here, you're not really thinking about how that connects to your problem. You're just moving around, and before you know it, you're starting to feel like, wow, like I'm putting a lot more pressure through something that was just bothering me, but I don't have my mind kind of focused on it. And that's where I feel like the MovNat Medical coursework is so great, is because it's not just talking about this. I think most people would understand logically that this makes sense, but like we want you to practice this, and then let's apply it to an actual case study to say, how would this side bend sit to split kneel actually fit in with somebody who's dealing with a meniscus injury, right? Like where in the timeline does that fit in? Like, okay, right out of surgery, like probably not going to be doing a ton of kneeling right off of there, but like how can we prep that? How can we basically create the foundation to now level up into more strength and stability, and then eventually getting them super confident to load that up with some weight and stand all the way up, right? So that confidence is a big integrative part to MovNat and MovNat Medical.
Yeah, I think it's going to be huge. When I had my first call, that was the first question that said, "We'll MovNat Medical back." And I was like, oh man, you're going to make me respond a little too early. So I kind of let the cat out of the bag, but I'm glad that we're having this conversation now and everybody can see that it's going to occur in 2026. I want to open it up. Does anybody have questions for me or for Ryan with anything related MovNat Medical? Feel free to ask. I'll give you a couple of seconds there, or like a minute, to see if anybody needs to type something up. In the meantime, I'm just going to speak about Clark because he can't seem to get on the call. So Clark is a physical therapist in Virginia, and I met him in, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Clark, I believe it was 2021 or 2022. And I did the MovNat Medical course, and I was just impressed by his operation. Like Thrive PT, from the moment you walk in, was a place that really looked like it practiced natural movement to help its clients recover. And when I met Clark and I realized the kind of person he was and how he approached, he wasn't even taking the course, he was hosting. So, he was in and out. But anytime there was an opportunity to have a discussion, he was there and open to assist us and have those conversations and discussion. And he was literally like one of the first people that popped in my mind, bringing back 2020, MovNat Medical into 2026. And it's unfortunate that he can't seem to be able to get in the call. And I know he's going to be going off to some patients, but I will make sure that we set up some time, me and Clark, and maybe me, Clark, and Ryan on maybe like a Zoom call or something. We'll have this discussion with a little bit more detail for everybody so you guys can kind of follow up on it. Any questions? Going once, going twice. I know we had more questions the first time. I'm checking through. Okay, so another thing that I think is going to be pretty heavily discussed in MovNat Medical is one of the biggest questions I think anybody gets is, how do you bill for this? Right? So like, how do you, I gave my patient foot hand crawls. Like, is there a bill code for that? Like, if you were to discuss that off the top of your head and you had to think about, somebody who's in a non-cash-based practice and they're at the whims and restrictions of physical therapy, how are they able to use this in the clinic and be able to bill? What would be like your number one piece of advice for something if you had to say something?
Yeah, I mean, when we break down movement and we are using it to relate to a specific goal, right? Like therapeutic exercise has its own code, and that relates usually to strengthening of something, right? Well, when we're getting into neurodevelopmental sequences and we're getting into pattern movement that incorporates multiple segments, one of the easiest advices I guess I would look for is like neuromuscular reactivation and neuromuscular type codes that help to comment on things like stabilization, coordination, proprioception. These are great avenues to work on, right? We may be in a foot hand crawl, but the task may be around reaching or pulling or lifting something. And there's a heck of a lot of stabilization going on in that. So although we may be doing a task that looks like an upper extremity dominant thing, there's no shortage of getting a lot of stability out of the lower half and in the core, which can apply to things like low back pain, right? I mean, it does get hard in the world of insurance, where reimbursement rates are lower and things are very well scrutinized and things are denied, and we have to really be careful on how we document things. But that is something that will be included in this course because we want our clinicians to feel, super empowered to be able to connect pieces, even though somebody may come in for a particular body part. And we want to make sure at the end of the day that we are getting into medical necessity, right? And providing what these people need, but doing so under a way that is autonomous for what we know that the person needs. And I think that's a great point because it's just a different world, and we got to make sure that we're doing things, by the book, but also to help the person.
Yeah, that kind of becomes the crux, right? But I think anybody who's doing what we do or what you do, it's always with the mindset of trying to help somebody, right? And that's what's kind of the important defining factor moving in that direction. A couple of things that I definitely want to say about the potential for, when this does come back and we do run it back to teaching is how this course is going to be implemented. Now, some people might have a concern that they don't get enough of a background, but we do run courses that are like an L1 and an L2 combined. And I think it would be great. Yeah, Mark, I'm definitely excited to have you back on the team to assist with MovNat moving forward.
World class.
And we're gonna be in chat. It's unfortunate you couldn't get on the call. I know the system was kind of acting weird, but we'll definitely make sure we fix it up, Clark. Thank you for showing up. Is even potentially combining the two, doing an L1 for 2 days and then doing your MovNat Medical the second 2 days. So instead of, you know how traditionally an L1 and L2 is a 4.5 day experience, which round up is really fast. Well, in 2026, we're probably going to get rid of that half day. So it'll be a 4 day experience with the half day brought to you in advance. One of the biggest issues with the MovNat certs, and it's not blaming anybody, it's not everybody reads the manual before they show up. Some people show up and they try and wing it, and they use the half day as the opportunity to learn everything on that moment. And I want to stress, like, you don't have to feel pressure to learn everything in that half day. I'm going to give it to you well in advance, and you just have to have it completed before you show up, right? So that you know you're already on the right page. And then that first day is going to come through, and it'll kick off moving. But it would be great to also bundle, because I think level 1 is probably the most appropriate foundation for somebody doing something like MovNat Medical or physical therapy, right? You're not going to really be using the L2 skills or the L3 skills with somebody who's in a rehabilitatory kind of phase in their life. So L1 makes the most sense. So to bundle, hey, you can take MovNat Medical and L1 together and just have the 2 courses, and we'll have a instructor show up to do the 1 course, and then you or Clark would be teaching the MovNat Medical portion on the second back half of the day. And I think it works out even better. So you have like a standalone MovNat Medical option, or you might have one that's technically it is standalone because you're only teaching those 2 days. But there can be a lead-in if you want to, right? You can have the L1 and the L2, the L1 kind of have it super fresh in your mind and then be able to move into MovNat Medical, or you could just take that course online that kind of gives you the back-end information you need regarding natural movement to step into MovNat. And I think overall, some of the things that we're trying to improve on, some of those discussions that we just had to kind of close off, because I know at some point you got to head back into the
real world.
Yeah, is I'm going to give you everybody my thoughts. So what MovNat Medical did really, really well was give you an introductory kind of idea and concept of how to apply natural movement in a rehabilitatory setting. Where I think MovNat Medical fell short, didn't give you enough studies and enough follow-up support to continue to utilize this moving forward. And one of the things that I'm really trying to develop is a sense of community within natural movement and MovNat as a whole, with a lot more support. The other night, I got an email from somebody who was talking about how, one of the things that they wish they had was when they were trying to pursue their level 2, they didn't really have an understanding of how to program for themselves to assist that, to get them to finish that L2 because they fell short during the certification. And they just didn't feel like they had that kind of support to assist them in being able to develop a skill set, which prior to me coming to the role, it was true. Like I could see that even from a consumer standpoint. And I Phil Lombardo's one person in the team. Everybody's got their lives and everybody's got things to do. But I want to put a system in place that even when somebody finishes MovNat Medical, there's a place that they can continue to foster these conversations, and we can continue to produce the support to get people to utilize these concepts effectively. Because we know how much better the outcomes can be when these things are applied. And that's backed by not just me saying anecdotal stuff, that's backed by hard research. I mean, when you look at complex demands to reinitialize like motor behavior and motor learning, the more complex the demand is and the more task-oriented the demand is and the more that it's with an environment that adds complexity, the better your ability to absorb that information and utilize it in future context is, because it provides you a various solutions to problems. And where traditional rehab, in my personal experience and from reading literature where it falls short is, and not dismissing physical therapy as a whole, is a lot of the tasks and demands, don't have outcomes and aren't necessarily task-based. Mm-hmm. And they generally don't combine full gross motor patterns that add that complexity to make the brain really go at night when it goes to sleep, that lymphatic system, to make sure that it says, oh, all the stuff we did today is important. We need to internalize it and we need to use it moving forward. It's really just a reigniting and reimagining of your body's understanding of what it was capable of. And the moment you do that, and the moment you integrate that from a therapeutic standpoint, your outcomes are just better. And that's not oh, I'm, throwing glitter and trying to speak on something. No, it's the truth. And, I think that's what's going to separate a lot of physical therapists moving forward, is the ones that can have a much more integrative approach for their patients and for their clients. They're going to have probably the biggest impact.
Yeah, absolutely. And doing the level 1, right? Like if you can combine that, I mean, it's nothing like experiential learning. So when you start to put yourself through these things and really feel it, it's going to magnify it by a lot. So that's really huge.
Yeah. All right. So before we head off, is there any questions moving forward? MovNat Medical is going to be coming back in 2026. I couldn't tell you the exact date. If you asked for an estimate, it would probably be on the tail end of the first half of 2026 and on the back end of 2026. So figure you're looking at the first half of the year, first 6 months, maybe month between 4 and 6. April, June, something on the back end. April, May, June, maybe even July. And then in the back half, we'll be teaching it again somewhere else. If nobody's got any questions, I'll just give you some brief announcements. 4th of July sale happening at MovNat. We're offering lifetime access to all the e-courses. We have some new e-courses scheduled, and this e-course across should be released this July. Financial Strength, Juan's going to be releasing a course in August. Marseille will be, no questions, but looking forward to taking MovNat Medical 2.0. Thank you, Diane. We truly appreciate that. I'm looking forward to you taking it too. I know you're somebody who's incredibly, she's one of those wonderful colleagues of mine that I've been telling you about. She's an incredible therapist. Awesome. We're going to have some new e-courses coming out. There's also, if you hunt down your favorite PI, they do have a coupon code for 40% off a certification, which is like the deepest discount we've ever had on a certification, but they're limited to 10. So if they already ran out of that coupon, unfortunately, we don't have any more, but they do have a 30% coupon that is applied up until the end of the month. And then lifetime access to Thinkific, that's limited to only 50 participants. We're not selling any more than that. Ryan, any comments, questions before we head off? I think this was a great kind of conversation to let people know what MovNat Medical is going to be. I think we owe Clark a conversation between the three of us. Absolutely. And hopefully we can get that together. Maybe we'll have to use like a Zoom call and record it, and then we'll put it out there for anybody to ask questions and get to us that way.
Yeah, I would say
reach out to you. How can they?
Yeah, follow Thrive PT, follow my account Paths to Movement, follow MovNat. Like keep us, just keep checking in, because the more momentum we get with this, the more we're going to want to keep letting everyone know what's going on and the dates, the times, and how this is going to evolve. So if you'd love to send me a message about like how I integrate this into my practice, if you are a clinician of any sort, I'm happy to have a side conversation with you. But I'm just really looking forward to 2.0. Everything has to grow and evolve in life. So why not MovNat Medical, and why not keep going with this evolution here?
Awesome. Ryan, it was a pleasure meeting you earlier this year and having the discussions that we've had. And I'm really looking forward to having you on the team to really help build this out. Clark, I know you couldn't make it, and I know you're already back in the clinic, but I'm going to say this publicly. I'm very excited to also have you on the team. And I look forward to, this movement of MovNat Medical 2.0. And I really thank Phil Lombardo and the previous team, John Murray, and everybody else who was involved laying down the foundation for us and giving us kind of a clear path on how to build on it and make it even better. So if nobody has any other questions, or if you do have a question, you can reach out to Brian directly. You can reach out to me directly. Brian@movnat.com is my email address, or you can just DM me, Brian B, the EP. And I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their day, and I'm excited to get this ball rolling.
Yes, absolutely. All right.
Brian, pleasure. Good luck in the real world out there.
Peace. I see you.
Take care. Bye.